morning I'm interviewing you at your home, and I'm interviewing Sam Duran on April 8th, 2013, and this is Barbara Jagan, and I'm interviewing for the Louisville History Museum, and it's our oral history interviews, one of them, and Jean Morgan is on the camera, and they also have some questions. So we'll just start out now. Sam, I like to ask your full name. You tell me, and any nicknames you want to say on camera, and then I'll be asking you for your parents and grandparents'
That's
names.
fine.
So,
All right.
Mm-hmm. So your name?
Samuel J. Duran.
And you were born where?
Boulder County Memorial Hospital.
And when?
September 4th, 1942.
Great. And your parents' names?
Solomon S. Duran, and my mother, Emma, maiden name Zamora.
Mm-hmm. And your
Duran.
mother died when you were quite young?
2 years old. She died in 1944. So 2 years after my birth.
And your grandparents were from Louisville?
No, my grandfather was born in Trinidad, around the area down there, a town called Weston. It's still there. It's west of Trinidad. It's more of a little village then than it was a town. But he was born there in 1881. His father was John Baptiste Duran, and the family was raised down there.
When did they move up here then at some point in their lives?
Grandfather spent a lot of his youth, I guess, aged down there, where he was a farmer, and they raised goats and sheep. That's what they did for a living. And then when he got married to my grandmother, it was 18. I can't recall the date. I got it there in a ledger, but the grandmother was born in 1886, and she was from New Mexico. She was born in a town called Chilecito, New Mexico. Once they got married, had my dad, Solomon, then my Aunt Flora, Montano. Then she had my Uncle Joseph, my Uncle John, my Uncle Dewey, my Aunt Mary, my Aunt Frances, my Aunt Evangeline, and my Aunt Virginia, and my Uncle Jesse.
And so they were all born in that area then?
Everybody, with the exception of my Uncle Jesse and Virginia, they were born in Erie.
Oh, okay.
They came up here, they used to come up here in the summertime and work the crops, the fields. They worked for the Stengel family, the Brandt family, Beaupre family, Klinke family.
Oh, wow.
And then wintertime, they work in the mines, mostly Monarch. I don't recall them working here in Louisville, and it was mostly the Monarch area that they worked the mines. So other than my father, Solomon, and a couple of the older sons worked the mines, but the rest filtered off and doing other things, construction, stuff like that,
Agriculture and...
Yeah.
And
So, yeah. To where some got into carpentry. An uncle of mine got into ironworking. They had a lot of different fields.
About the 1920s then when they were up here?
Pretty much, the parents, when the parents moved, the siblings tend to follow.
Yeah.
So I believe that they came up here, my grandparents, about 1920, mid-20s. Because my Uncle Jess was born in 26, and they were here already.
They were here.
So at that time, they'd moved here. The house they moved into on must have been on Front Street, 500 block. The earliest Hispanic family that lived here already was Dominic Lorenzi, the
yeah.
Lorenzi family.
Yeah.
He sold the house to my grandfather where they lived on Front
On
Street.
front.
Yeah. And Dominic moved uptown, high scale.
Uptown.
Yeah, he moved to the corner house on Pine and Grant, I think it was. Right on the corner of Pine and Grant.
You know what corner?
It's on the
Southeast.
southwest side of Pine
Southwest
Street,
side.
yeah, right on the corner.
Uh-huh.
So if you was going west, if you turn left, that'd be that corner house right there.
Mm-hmm.
And his family still lives around here. Catherine Garcia is her name. She was a Lorenzi. And then when my grandfather bought that house, that block used to consist of, on the very south end of Front Street, was the Rickman house family.
Rickman. I
Yeah.
haven't heard that name before.
And then my grandfather's house, then Stallings' house, which my father bought later, and then Fanny Wiseman. We're going north. And then the Day house, and then on the corner of Front and Pine, Dewey Rodriguez used to live there in a two-story house.
So it was pretty much the whole 500 block of,
Yeah.
of Front Street.
Front Street there and across the street.
Okay.
Because Flora, my oldest aunt, she was the second born, lived across the street to the west. Montano, she lived there with her family. They were
Yeah.
siblings. They were born in the late 20s and then on. And then next to her, to the north, was a family called the Mestas family, cousins. And the north, the Mestas family was the Garcia family, no relation. I don't understand how, but not. And then there was an empty lot, and then there was a Thomas building, house in that store, gas station, whatever it used to be. So,
And did the Thomas family have the grain store at that time?
yes, I believe they did. I don't know, I don't think they owned the mill yet. They bought the mill at a later time. And I don't recall if they owned that feed store to the west of the house there. Because I know I used to go there, but not till we moved here to buy grain for the chickens and pigeons and stuff like that for the family.
So the mill is what we're sort of referring to as the granary now. That
Right,
yeah.
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 Used to hear that thing chugging all summer long and into the fall, especially when the crops were,
Really.
in.
Yeah.
So when we lived on Front Street, we used to be able to go down there, and they had like a two-man elevator with a rope
Yes.
that we could go in there, and he'd wheel us to the top and let us come back down again.
And they let you play in there?
Well, no.
Or-
We were supervised.
Okay.
They would let us go on if they operated it, we could be able to ride that elevator or man lift or whatever you might call it back then.
How old were you then?
I was probably 8 or 10, something like that. And I had a whole conglomerate of cousins too. They used to come down. We'd all go down there, and play around and jump on
Yeah.
as you drove up on to the weight scale, it would kind of teeter and rock, Even I could.
That was exciting for a 10-year-old.
Well, yeah, you get on there and rock it around. And hey, you kids, get off of that thing.
Whoa, kind of a little dangerous.
Well, just irritating to them. They didn't want to mess the scale up or
Could you
take it out of the
fall
cal-
into the grain when you were doing
No,
that?
no. I don't recall any dangerous part of that elevator, really. It.
Sounds dangerous to me.
Well, no. I mean,
No one ever got hurt on it.
no, there was a void underneath that scale because you had to
Yeah.
use hydraulics and to weigh your truckload of grain or whatever. But no, it was never a threat. So we play around it and pick up feed. Lots of times they spill a lot of their load You know, we scoop it up and take it
Right.
home. I mean, I only lived 2 houses away. Bring it
Right,
home and
yeah.
feed your chickens with the grain or
Yeah.
whatever. You know, it was economical, feasible to feed your stock with no pay. You know.
So your father he bought a house on Front Street also? Or,
Yes.
But you pretty much lived with your grandparents?
Yes. You know, they never did adopt me, but when I hear my mother ask my grandmother and grandfather to go ahead and take care of me, because she pretty much gave me to them, because as sick as she was, you know, she died of cancer. So then my dad, I mean, he had a hard time raising another 4 or 5 kids also.
Right.
But then he bought that house, that yellow house. I think it's on the historical, what would you call it? Preservation? Yeah, right.
Landmark.
Mhm.
And that's the still on, it's on Front Street too, in the
Yeah,
500 block.
right. It's the only yellow house on the
Okay.
block. It's pretty dilapidated too, because same as this house, you know,
Yeah.
they don't take care of nothing.
Oh, right.
And he bought it off a family called Stallings. The last name was Stallings. In about 48, 49, when he got married again.
So you mentioned the 4 or 5 kids, those were from his second marriage.
Yeah, the first marriage was to a Castillo, a Reyes Castillo, and he had 1 son from her, Manuel Duran.
Okay.
He's born in 27, and she passed away a few years later. I don't know what the cause was, but
Yeah.
that was
So
his
your
first
mother
son.
was his second wife.
Yes. And then about,
And then she
fo-
died.
yeah, and my mother's children were my brother George. He was born in 32. My sister Martha, she was born in 36. My sister Josephine, I'm a little ahead of myself. She was born in 34, Josephine was, and then my sister Martha. And then my sister Irma was born in 41, and I was born in 42. But we had an older sister that passed away in 39. Her name was Emily. So
did your grandparents take on all of these children? Or?
you know, at times, how it is, family,
We're all
from
right
house to
here,
house
right,
and this and that, you know.
Uh-huh.
There was really no set place for anybody
But
to
you
stay.
being the youngest one when your mother died.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
right.
Yeah, so
But-
you spent most of your time with your grandparents.
Yes. So when we moved here, you know, I came over, and then eventually my sisters would come over. Well, my brother George, he was the oldest already. He joined the Air Force in 51, I believe, during the Korean War. And he was just distant. He moved to, he was stationed in Mobile, Alabama. And pretty much that's where he run out his service. And he stood there because
And
he
then he stayed.
married some woman from there.
You said quite a few of your relatives were in the South.
Yeah, anymore. They are. And my sister Martha, she's in Arkansas, and my other sister's in Georgia.
So when did your grandparents then buy the house, I guess, that was on this property where you live now?
Well, when they bought it, it was there.
Okay.
They bought that house in 51 off a trot. It used to be, and everything was gone other than Trot still had some buildings that are still over there. And they had a big loading dock coming off the side of the hill there. It was still there.
What were they loading?
Well, the trains used to stop there. They had lumber,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff that they used to unload there. And I think that was the main drop-off point for lumber yards like Steinball and those places. They just come and collectively drop it off there and collectively take it over to wherever it was going to go. I don't know. It's just hearsay by me because that's the reason they used that dock was to unload material and whatever. So when we moved here, like I'm saying, there were still people living in this house upstairs. Trot lived downstairs, and I remember the Taylor family lived upstairs. It was a young woman and her mom. She was a cutie too, even as young as I was. My grandfather gave him 30 days
Yeah.
to find, and there was another man lived up there called Marcelo Vera. He spoke Spanish, he didn't speak any English at all. And he lived in the upstairs bedroom to the west. And he didn't make it out, he died up there. Something happened to the character, I guess. He was pretty old. And the only way out upstairs, they used to have a stairwell or a stairway here on the back side of this house when we moved here. So to come out of that building, you had to go back down the stairs. And the outhouse was pretty close to where your van is parked, to use that. And they're assuming that as old as he was, to come up and down those stairs, he must have had a heart attack and he found him dead in his room.
Yeah.
So forevermore, I always thought that room was haunted.
I thought it was haunted.
Are you talking about the Trot house now or this house?
Talking
Trot
about
house.
the Trot house, yeah, right
Okay,
next to
and
us here.
do you remember the address on that?
The what?
The address? So just to locate it.
1105.
Pine.
Yes.
But when was that house built, do you know?
When it was here, the picture I used to see, I don't know if Bridget has it yet or not, because it used to be at the First Bank for a long, long time.
Okay.
And Fred McNulty said he had one. It showed the date 1903.
Okay.
Now, I don't know whether they took that picture or dated a house being here or being over there. And the picture shows that house being there because of the two trees that are out there, those two big locust trees. They were little saplings when they planted them. And it had a picket fence, but it shows the house being located where it's at now,
So
back
it
in
was
1903.
It was originally on this property.
Yes.
Right here,
Right,
where you live now.
right.
And then it was moved by the Trots.
Either by the Trots or that grill. What'd you say it was? The grill? Lumberyard?
When there was a lumber yard there.
Yeah, right in front.
Yeah.
On the,
Yeah, okay. So eventually then the house was moved next door.
right,
And then this was an empty lot where you
yes.
now live.
Uh-huh.
So when you lived there, the house was what it
1109
is
Pine.
now? Mm-hmm. Okay, okay. And you lived with your grandparents
Yeah,
there?
my grandparents, Jose Eligio was his full name.
Mhm.
And my Uncle Jess never married. He was a bachelor. He lived there too.
Okay.
So there was the four of us.
Uh-huh.
Now this man, my Uncle Jesse, he was a very smart person, you know. I mean, he's educated and all
Yeah.
that. And he helped me through school pretty much. He knew everything. You know, history, science, math. Math was my hardest problem.
So he was a favorite uncle.
Jess. Yep.
Favorite Uncle Jess.
And I loved my Uncle Joe. Well, I loved them all, really.
Yeah.
But as far as favorites growing up with him, you know, he's like a brother, a father, whatever, to me also. Because my dad was on that side of the railroad track with the rest of the family.
With the
Yeah.
younger kids. And,
Yeah. And I'm over here with my uncle,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, you had a lot of wonderful family raising you and
Oh, yeah.
keeping you on the right track,
Sometimes.
so to speak.
You can try, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
So what were some of the things when you were growing up in this neighborhood? What were some of the things you did?
You know, I was pretty much a loner.
Huh?
I'd make up my own games or do what I wanted to do. And I'd take walks to the creek, you know, and just explore. I was always curious of what was there on the other side of the hill, you know. Sometimes you go up top of the hill and there's really nothing on the other side. But I just loved.
So you had the railroad tracks on one side and Pine Street on the other, basically, the old Pine Street.
Well, yeah. I used to love to explore this town. Out of curiosity, I go from block to block. Well, it ended there at the end of Pine Street. I mean, there was, you know,
Right,
a town
yeah,
back
it was
then of
pretty small.
1,800,
Yeah.
2,000 people. I just walk all over, then go up top of the hill, see what was there, look at the mine shafts, go to swim in a creek down there, even though it was, at the time, there was a lot of leeches in the water, blood leeches.
Yeah.
And right at the top,
Did you ever get one
yeah,
caught on you?
right. You know, they're kind of, you had to slide them off to try to pull them off. They just stick as slimy as they was.
Yeah.
You know, you go hunting, well, not hunting, but fishing for crawdads. There was a lot of crawdads then. A lot of game down there. I never did hunt nothing, but you know, there was a lot of sights to see.
Right.
So with that, like I said, I walked around town to see what was there and find apple trees, whatever. Just,
Pick an apple.
yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, there were more meat in them apples than there was apple anyway.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying. I don't know. So I think it was more exciting on this side of the track because during the Korean War, trains would come by, the passenger trains full of soldiers, you know, and they'd stop here. And they'd be waving to us, and we'd be waving, they'd be throwing us money and all this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the war, but I just thought, well, look at all them soldiers, you know, and then they'd pass by, and a couple of days later, another train would come by with all the kind of the artillery, tanks and trucks and all this stuff heading to depots.
So why did they stop here? No?
I don't know, it was some kind of an exchange, either they had to pick up somebody or drop somebody off. Because there were people here in town that were in the Korean War. You know, my brother was one of them, even though he'd gone to Alabama. But they stopped. I don't know whether they'd get. It was still coal-fired trains. They weren't diesels.
Yeah.
Yeah. They may have stopped for water
They have,
or whatever.
do
I
they
don't
have a
know.
water tower around?
They did right over by the old Colorado Cafe, which is the old Louisville Inn now.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes they pull over, excuse me, they pull over another rail. I mean, what is that called?
Like a side rail. Or
Yeah,
something.
side rail to let
Sure
the
there's
freight
a-
trains go by. So they'd be there for a while, you know, maybe 15, 20
Even
minutes.
then, the freight trains had the right of way.
Right, they did. Well, they were hauling all the cargo too, you know, so
Right. Yeah.
all the tanks and trucks and
Yeah.
whatever. But
Remember how many trains might have gone through during the day?
you know, I don't think there were that many. Might have been 4, at most maybe half a dozen. You know, it was pretty busy, but lots of times too, they'd use them side rails because around the end of summer, well, into the fall, October, September, October, they'd bring in what they call the, not a chain gang, but the, some kind of a crew in bright orange boxcars. Some were living quarters, some were equipped with tools, and one was the the car where the chef used to cook for the workers. And they'd be on the furthest rails to the east, and they'd sit there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
And they were working on the rails?
Yeah, they were maintenance people. And we made friends with them, you know. They,
Yeah.
especially the cook, you know, he'd make us cakes or pies or whatever. And they had one dog, the ugliest mangy red dog you ever want to see. And he had funny teeth that stuck out of his lip, you know. And me, for animals, I really loved them. Even though we had goats here, we had a pig here, we had chickens, geese, pigeons, and dogs, cats, canaries. I seen that dog. I said, whose dog is that? We don't know, you know, he just jumped into a boxcar and he's been riding with us. Nobody really owns him. I says, can I have him? If you can catch him. He's really elusive. Really? That was a challenge. I said, okay. So across the ditch, you know where that path is at? The weeds used to grow this tall. So I found out where he was sleeping at night, you know. I said, I got to get that dog. So I just laid there with a rope. He came around. I grabbed him by the neck. And I put the rope on him. Boy, he was jumping and backing up and all this stuff and scared. I think he's more scared than anything. He didn't bite. Brought him home. Grandpa says,
I was going to ask you what your grandparents
what are you
said.
going to do with that dog? I don't know. They gave him to me. I said, well, keep him tied up and he'll come around. So he kept looking over to the boxcars, you know. So when they left, I let him loose and he took off running. Well, he's gone. Well, he run back there where I caught him, you know. So then he come back creeping when he was hungry, you know.
So he didn't follow the boxcar then.
No.
He just
So he
knew
stood.
that something
Yeah,
was changing.
he got used to us and stood.
Yeah.
Man, he was another pet, you know.
What did you call
Red, because he was red
he
in
red?
color. We called him Red.
him? Okay. So where did you go to school?
Here at the elementary, on Spruce and Jefferson. First grade through sixth, and then graduation day, the seventh grade at the high school. Well, that was a big deal. We thought we was really uppity because we got to go to the big school, you know, and it was fun.
So what do you remember any of your teachers
Yes.
in elementary school?
In the elementary school, first grade was Mrs. Morgan. I can't recall if they held me back a year, if not because I caught up with my older sister in the first grade. And I didn't know what the school was all about, you know. So Mrs. Morgan, now I don't know.
That was Lydia Morgan?
Yes, I hate to say anything bad about her, but now she paid more attention to me. Why? I don't know. But when she talked about something I didn't know, I asked my sister, what'd she say? Come up here. You know, you. Yeah. She grabbed me and take me behind the piano and swamped me a couple of times with the hose. I said, well, I'd cry. You know, I didn't know. I was foreign to the school and foreign to what was going on.
You were in first grade?
Yes. I thought, wait a minute. What is this, you know? So I couldn't tell my parents. And I didn't want to figure that, well, I was causing trouble. Anyhow, I got through that first grade. Second grade was Mrs. Stratton. She was a beautiful woman. Little frail little thing, you know, brown hair. And we got along really good. Third grade, Mrs. Callahan, she was I think she was a math teacher. She was another very dominant teacher. You spoke out of turn, come up here. What? Hold your hand out.
Wow.
Wow, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm looking around, I thought, how come I'm the only one
Why
getting
me?
swatted? Yeah. Everybody else is having a good time. You know, like, so what?
Do you think there was a prejudice
You know,
involved?
I don't know. Now, maybe I was a smart aleck, I don't recall, but those 3, 4 grades are kind of, you know.
Well, then you were ill during that time, or late? Weren't you in the hospital for a while?
No, that was when I was in the 5th grade.
That was later.
Yeah. Now, the 4th grade was a music teacher called Mrs. Davis. Red-headed woman, fiery lady.
Just like her hair.
I think she was Irish, I don't know. Anyhow, okay, now we're going to sing this song today. You know, everybody's singing, and I like to sing. So we're over there singing, and evidently she didn't think I was singing loud enough, and she grabbed me by the cheeks. Sing loud, I told you. I said, I am singing. Well, sing louder. And then she'd walk away. I said, we're back to that routine again, you know. one-on-one. Fifth grade, Mrs. Gardner. She's another lovely woman. She got married, her name was, I think her, let me think, I might have this backwards. She might have been Mrs. Blossom before she got married, or Mrs. Blossom after she got married, but I remember her more as being Mrs. Gardner.
Mhm.
She was a fifth grade teacher. And the sixth grade teacher, I believe, was Mrs. She'd come back several times. She'd teach school here, and then she'd go to Boulder. Then she'd go to teach in Boulder a year, and then she'd come back to Louisville. And I think she was another math teacher. I'm not sure. Goodrich. I think her name was Goodrich. Sixth grade. So, and then the principal, before I went to the sixth grade, I think Mr. Barbero, I believe he was the principal at the grade school, then he went to the high
And
school.
he was at the high school
Yeah.
board on Garfield.
So they brought in a guy called DeGregory, Mr. DeGregory. I can't tell by the last name what his race was, but DeGregory, what would you think it might be? English or French or whatever?
Yeah, could have been either. It might have been French.
Yeah. But anyhow, he had two boys, one ahead of me, one with me. And the younger boy stuttered when he spoke. And his kids sometimes would mock him and make fun of him. I mean, no
That
harm
was-
intended, but
Right,
you know,
yeah.
you're trying to get out.
Well, sure,
What are you
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
You know, slap
Yeah.
him on the back. So we'd go out to recess. This is the elementary school. Get on the swings, and we'd swing, you know, as high as we could. And you get to a point where you bail out when you're coming forward on the swing. See how far a distance you can get. We'd go out there and measure it. And the playground was full of stickers. I mean, they're big stickers. You're lucky if you didn't go home with a bunch of sores. But so I was really swinging. And about the time I jumped out, Mr. DeGregory's boy got in my path, and I tried to avoid him, and I turned sideways, and I hit him, and it knocked him down. And he was crying, and I was scared, because I know what was going to happen. Here comes,
Principal saw it.
here comes Mr. DeGregory. He grabbed me by the scuff of the neck. He dragged me across the yard, into the school, up the stairs, into his office. And with that, he still wasn't happy. He was shaking me. Well, why'd you do that? And I'm trying to explain to him it was an accident. That didn't feel too well. You know, it didn't go over well with what I was trying to tell him either. You know, he lectured me and this and that. By that time, I was used to the aggression I was getting from everybody. You know, it didn't bother me one way or another. So he grabbed me by the scuff of the collar and he took me back and more or less shoved me into the classroom. That was the fifth grade. So, and all the kids I think I was more hurt and embarrassed because all the buddies of mine and everybody
Sure.
see what I was into. And they just kind of looked at me and thought, yeah, you at it again, are you? I didn't do anything. Just, you know, so there was, would you call it prejudice? I don't know. Would you call it a word of mouth from one teacher to another, watch his kid because, you know,
He's going to get in trouble or
yeah,
something. Could
if
be.
anybody's going to get in trouble, he will, type of thing. And not so much that I was, but just
But they were
things
watching
happen.
it.
Yeah,
right.
things happen, and just
Yeah,
coincidence I was
yeah.
the one they took their frustrations out on. But yeah, even in grade school, you know, some of my friends who turned out to be best friends in high school were kind of on my case. You know, it'd take 3 or 4 of them to grab me if they were going to beat me up or something. And you learn to defend yourself. So at times it happened in high school, but I was old enough to.
You told the story of one time someone coming to your aid when you were walking home.
Yes, this was the 5th grade, I believe, 6th grade. Steve Crimpley was the kid's name. And his dad owned Crimpley's bar or pool hall over here before they tore that building down on Front Street. You remember that? He was mean. Now, he had a little brother, David, I think his name was 1 grade below me. But I'd come out of the classroom when school was out, and I'm looking this way and I'm looking that way. I know he's around, you know. He'd hide behind a car or something, and just about the time he'd find me, he'd smack me and take off. Well, I come out of school, I was walking down the sidewalk, and I'm looking this way and looking that way, I didn't see him. And all of a sudden, I felt him come up behind me and grab me by the shoulder. And then I looked around, he was crying because Don Pickett had grabbed him and smacked him right in the jaw. I think he broke his jaw because he was laid inside. He said, "Oh, you broke my jaw." He says, "I've watched you pick on Sam a long time." He said, "You won't be doing it anymore." And I looked at Don, and he didn't say nothing. He just turned and walked away. You know? Wow, I got a friend somewhere. You know?
Was he in your class also?
No, he was. Donnie wasn't older. I think he was in the high school already. And where he came from, I'll never know.
But he knew that you'd been bullied.
Yeah, right.
Picked on.
Yeah. So him and another kid, Donnie Kentz, I believe his name was. His dad was a music teacher at the high school, Mr. Kentz. He was another guy that used to watch out for me, you know. So Freddie Navarro, he was another bully. There was a lot of bullies in town. Freddie Navarro caught me in a show at the theater. I didn't know what was going on, but I come in, bought my ticket. Carmen was there, you know. I used to talk to him a lot. And I was walking down the aisle with my popcorn and my pop, and Freddie Navarro come behind me and knocked my Coke out of my hand. Well, he was another kid that was in high school already. I just looked, I said, what am I going to do, you know? And Donnie Kentz, I'm thinking, I'm not sure about the first name, if it was Donnie, but I know his last name was Kentz. He come up and grabbed him and knocked him down.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, he said, why did you pick on him for? What was he doing? Well, I don't like him. Well, I don't like you either, and he hit him again. Here comes Carmen. Out, I want you kids out of here. I said, I didn't do anything.
This was at the Rex?
Pardon?
At the Rex
Yes.
Theater?
So they let me stay, and kids stay, and they kicked little Freddie out. Don't you come back here no more. Fine, you know. I could go to show in peace, you know, without anybody bothering me.
So when you had, you weren't sure if it was a jaundice or what, but you were, was it 6th grade?
5th grade.
5th grade?
Yeah. They called it yellow jaundice or hepatitis. And my cousin Robert Duran lived up in Little Italy. Speaking of Little Italy, I mean, they called it Little Italy. But the Duran family there,
It wasn't all Little Italy.
Arroyo's family lived there, Oliva's family lived there, the Chavez family lived there, and the Cruz family lived there. All within the small area that was there, you know. So, anyhow, what was the question again? Oh, the yellow jaundice? Yeah.
Yeah, because you ended up in the hospital with that.
Yes.
Didn't you?
Like I said, my cousin Robert and Veronica caught it first. I didn't know what causes yellow jaundice or where it comes from, but they were hospitalized for a couple of weeks. Then they came out and my sister got it. My sister Irma, she went to the hospital, and then I caught it, and then I went to the hospital. So
you were both in at the same time,
yes,
you and your sister.
at the Boulder Memorial. So we were both there probably like 3 or 4 weeks. And then my sister Irma got released about a week before I did. Then I came home. And my grandparents used to travel a lot. You know, normal times it was my Uncle Jesse that was home, or my sister Martha would come over and help out. So they sent me home. And my dinner consisted of chocolate, hot chocolate, or cocoa. All my meat has to be broiled, not fried or anything, and stuff like that. So about a week later, my uncle just says, put your coat on. We're going over Toro, T-O-R-O. That was my Uncle Bonnie's nickname. I got a surprise for you. Really? So I put my coat on, dressed up, and we walked the track all the way over to Little Italy where my uncle lived on Cannon Street. And he says, come on in. So we went in the house. Nobody was home. He says, I want you to lay down here in bed because I got some errands to do. And I got something that's going to entertain you. What is that? A TV. A television. Really?
First one you
Yeah.
had in the family.
I thought, man, in-house movies. That's great. So we turned it on, and Abbott and Costello were on. The comedians. Good old shot. That, man, I'm going to stay here forever. So with that, he came back a couple hours later. Came home and I wasn't feeling well. So I wouldn't eat and I was vomiting. So he took me back to the hospital. So I spent another couple of weeks there.
So you missed quite a bit of school then.
Yes, I did. And Mrs. Stratton, third grade teacher, said she'd come and see me a lot of times, you know. She'd bring me some books and whatever, stuff to eat, which I wasn't supposed to, but I ate it anyway. And with that, you know, I got over it and everybody got over it and it was fine.
So you had a lot of schoolwork to catch up on now.
Yeah, I did. And I'm surprised that I passed for the time
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
lost,
yeah.
you know. So they were very lenient on me, you know, they gave me the breaks and this and that, but I made
Well,
it through.
You must have been smart enough that they knew you could make it.
I guess, you know,
Sure.
I was always challenged though because, how can I say, I was good in math. And we could have math contests on a blackboard, multiplication and all this stuff. Lots of times I'd win, but they didn't recognize that, hey, you can't beat this guy, he's smarter than you, so what are you trying to prove? I said, you know, I beat him. Well, yeah, well, sit down and let somebody else come up and challenge him. So I would say that led me to believe that they didn't care for, not Hispanic, but people not being what they're supposed to be. You know, I would pass a lot of stuff more so than a lot of other people, but I was never recognized. Same way in sports, you know. Get
So
out that
it
subject.
It was subtle, but,
Yeah,
but it was
right.
there.
Yeah. So I never had any praise from the teachers, and I never got any extra help. Thinking, well, this child here, you know, he's set up to where he can go on and be something better because he has the brains. You know, if he was just sitting there saying, "Well, I
They
don't
didn't
know,"
encourage it.
yeah, no encouragement from teachers.
Did you ever internalize that, or did it affect you anyway, or did you just go about your life knowing who you were and went and did it?
Well, it affected me in a lot of ways. You know, knowing that I could do what other kids do, if not better, but with no support. But I could ask my uncle, and he would show me, you know, do this and do that, and you know, so to apply it, you know, with a conscience of being around the teachers that really not paying attention to what I could do, what I was capable of. They'd always pick on, you know, head boy and head girl, stuff
Right,
like that.
yeah.
Even in athletics. Now, the only sport I really excelled in, and then again, I was kind of held back. I was a good basketball player, better than average. I could have been greater. But you know what? You guys recall that coach that was throwing basketballs and everything that everybody that they fired? We had a coach, his name was Telk, Coach Telk. Little short guy, about 5'5", weighed 300 pounds. He was mean. Now, when I was in the 9th grade, he could see I was pretty good. And he put me up against the upper grades to play. And I was a very good defensive player. And I could snatch the ball off of these guys real easy and go down the other end. So, when I wouldn't do it, he'd get mad and throw a ball at me, or he'd grab me. Not just me, but there was other kids there that he did that to. One in particular was Skip Domenico. This was about a 10th grade, and he was a senior. Skip was like 6 foot, 2 or something, about 190 pounds. And the coach had a nasty habit of getting away with throwing the balls and grabbing people. So he threw a ball at Skip Domenico. It's the wrong thing to do.
He got bigger than the coach?
He got that ball and threw it back at him, and he said, "I ain't playing anymore. I'm out of here." Wow. He banged into the locker room, and the coach was right after him. All here was a bunch of banging going on in the locker rooms, So he quit. He said, "I'm not playing anymore." And Talc come after and said, "Any other of you guys want to quit? There's the door." Well, we was all kind of trembling. I mean, there was a lot of big guys on the team. A lot of guys didn't want to take up with him because he was solid. So he says, "I'm going to put you here. I want you to take a ball away from these guys coming down dribbling. Johnny Mathis and Bob Jr. His wife just died here recently. Some other guy, Reddington, Bob Watts. They were pretty big boys." I said, "I'm going to get in trouble. I know I am. One side's going to pick me up, and the other side's going to throw a ball at me." So I'd go down there and snatch it away. Johnny Mathis, he was a very athletic built person. You come down there, boy, he'd give me that look. "You do that again." Coach says,
You were a guard.
Yeah,
probably,
right.
Probably very fast on your feet.
Yes, I was. And I said, "I can't do that, Coach, because you're either going to get on me or they're going to get on me.
Get you.
Don't worry about it." I thought, I got shocked. He says, "I'll take care of you." I thought, what's that mean? So I played. The best part of my life, where I felt free, is when he quit. And we got another coach in there. He was a darling, younger man.
Yeah.
I can't recall his name. But
so this was all at Louisville High.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I was in the 10th grade about then. So he stood only a year. And then they brought in another coach called Rakes. Coach Rakes, he's still here. He still resides in town. We had a good time together, he's good to me, and I played well for him and all this other stuff, so attitude was totally
different
right.
attitude
Right.
in coaching.
Yeah, atmosphere.
How big were you then? What was your size?
About what I am now. I've never gotten any bigger or any taller. Actually, I probably weighed about 130 pounds in high school. But I played football. I played basketball with the best of them. All the big guys, and I ran track. So pretty much I was a 4-year letterman, even though they denied the 9th grade when my cousin, when they went to Yuma to play a state conference championship for football. If you got to go in on a state championship game, even for the substitute for one play, you got a letter. So coach says, "Go on in there." Okay. What am I supposed to do? Just tackle somebody? I don't care. We was losing that bad anyhow. Say, "It's over. Just go in there." So I went in there. Got beat up. As scary as that was. So went in there. So I came out and I said, "Coach, do I get the letter?" He says, "Yeah." Okay. So come letter awards time,
No letter?
"Where's my letter, Coach?" "Well, you didn't have enough time in there." I said, "Yeah, but you told me I did." "No," he says, "Can it. It's over." Okay. So I didn't get a letter. But I didn't care. I got letters for the next 3 years in 3 fields, so what the heck. So in the 10th grade, you remember Beaupre? He was a principal at...
Yeah.
Well, he was a tackle or a guard on the football team when he was in high school. I was in the 10th grade, and Telk was still the coach for football. He says, I want you kids over here on this 10-yard line. I want you to tackle these guys, you know, like you're blocking for a runner. I want you to lay under them and make sure they don't get through. Am I supposed to do that? Do it the best you can. I said, I'm dead. I'm dead. And who do they pick out? Beaupre. And he come lumbering down there. I just, oh my God! I just kind of closed my eyes and rolled into him. And I got him down, but as he went down, his foot came up. I think it was on purpose. Came around and boom! He spiked me right in the shin bone. I still got a hole right there.
You're kidding, really?
Well, I got praise from the coach, but he thought to me, "You skinny little booger, don't do that again." I said, okay, I won't. I'm not going to. You know. But football was another sport.
Yeah.
And it was fun, and track. I ran track.
Good athlete.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of good athletes came out of Louisville. You know, the Hernandez brothers and the Beaupre. Sammy Rodriguez, well, that was before my time, though. He was in high school in the early 40s, I believe, with my Uncle Jess. He was an all-around athlete. Terrific. Probably the best one Louisville ever made, you know. And after that, he disappeared and got married and left town. So he was one of the outstanding, I think, Hispanic athletes in town.
Yeah.
He was just built that way, you know, real husky, nature-built boy, real beautiful complexion. He was dark, but his complexion, he had green eyes and real dark hair. Because his mom, she's the one who lived on Pine in Front Street on the corner
What
here.
was his name again?
Sammy
Sammy
Rodriguez.
Rodriguez.
And Mom just used to tell me about him. I said, man, that's really neat. You know, that they had somebody like that.
Yeah.
But then I had a cousin, 2 grades ahead of me, was a state wrestler champion, Bob Duran. He was a good athlete. Little guy,
Yeah.
but he did everything, you know. I wasn't outstanding in a lot of things, but I participated, you know. A lot of guys wanted to take away my position I had on the football team because I was a left-handed quarterback or running back. So
that would have been in about the late 50s?
for me,
Yeah.
no,
50s,
59, 60, 61.
Yeah.
So
that was still Louisville High and Lafayette
yes,
High at that time.
right.
So they were your major competitors.
They were.
Yeah.
We never played Lafayette that often. I never did when I was in school, but you know, the older classes had.
Right.
The other thing I most remember of Lafayette is all the gang fights they used to have between the two towns. This one happened in, let's see, 59? I think 59. I used to hang at Jensen's a lot of times, you know, playing the pinball machine and listen to the jukebox. And Skip Domenico comes up to me. He's a senior already. Sam, he says, you better be here at, this was in the fall, you better be here at 7:30, 8 o'clock. I says, why? You better be here and support your town. I says, what? Well,
Somebody knew that something was going to happen.
there's going to be a fight and you best participate. And I said, you crazy? Why would I do that? You know, all these big lurks running around. Hernandez brothers were huge guys. Jack Hernandez, his brother Jim. And from Lafayette, they had the Vickles brothers, Tank Vickles. Now, you assume a guy by the name of Tank, he's not a little guy.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got some stuff to him. So anyhow, Jerry Berg and I were pretty good buddies. And we'd hang out at Jensen's. He had the wire, and he'd drill a little hole on the side of the pinball machine to stick a wire in there to point, you know, rack up points so we can games.
Everybody knew the little tricks.
Yeah. Mr. Jensen What are you boys doing back there? Nothing, just playing the machine, you know. Hey, Carl, give me a Coke, will you? Yeah. Jerry, you want something? Yeah, give me a Coke. So ding, ding, ding. So in come Skip Domenico again. It's starting, really,
What's Skip's name? I mean,
Domenico. I don't know what his
first name.
real name was. I always knew him by Skip. So cars are going up and down Front Street.
Yeah.
They go, at that time, it was a dead end right there at the end of Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
And they turn around, make a U-turn, come back. And all of a sudden, everybody stopped right in front of the high school, of all places, and all hell broke loose. Chains were clanging, fists were banging, you know, people were screaming and, oh, ow, this kind of thing. And in no time at all, the cops showed up, and I was outside watching them. And me, like a stupid, I went across the street to get a closer look. And the cops are coming. I ducked under a car. How I got under there, I don't know. So everybody's dispersing, and all of a sudden, Arlo Wilson is dragging me out from under the car. What the hell are you doing? Nothing, I'm just watching. Well, he dragged me and a cousin off to the jailhouse over here on Spruce in Maine. Took us into the jail, and there was a kid by the name of Larry Hafner. His mom used to live out there on Highway 42, just before you hit, after you hit Thomas's place, there's a little gray house right there. He was all beat up, bleeding and bruised, and, you know. He says, did this guy hit you? Well, I knew Larry. I went to school with him. He says, no, that wasn't him. What about this other kid? No, it wasn't him, I told you. Well, who hit you? He said, how would I know? It was dark out there. Everybody was just swinging with chains and everything, so they let us all go. I mean, I didn't do anything. You know, they let us all go. So the next day, big riot in Louisville, gang fight, gang war. And it was like that. I think they quit doing that probably about
You mean that
60.
was in the paper? That,
You know, I don't, in Louisville Times it was. I don't know about the Boulder
yeah,
Camera.
yeah. But it
So,
was in the
yeah.
paper.
So it dispersed, all that inner city or outer city fighting just quit, you know.
You think it was the Lafayette kids who came over to beat you up?
I didn't know anybody from Lafayette. You know, all these other guys, you know, you can't go into a town with a carload of guys that you just want to cruise down and drag and get a hamburger. You're in there for a specific reason. You know, you're out there to cause trouble. They try to lure you to make you go into the town to chase you, you know. So then they have guys waiting. And once you're in that certain point of town, the cars would come out and block you in. If you're smart enough to lock your door or find another route out.
You were talking about happening around Jensen's?
Yeah, right,
It's
right on the
by
front lawn of the high
right?
school. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
That's where they decided they want to fight.
yeah. That's, well, it was across the street from the high school?
Jensen's, yeah. Jensen's was the local, you know,
Yeah, sort of hangout.
cafe, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
you come out of school, go to Jensen. You got a half an hour, 45 minutes before if you're in a athletic sport, you know, to do that and come back and do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the way pretty much, you know, it ended for me in high school. You know,
What year did you graduate?
1961.
1961.
So I have yet to talk, you know, about.
We're going to be changing tapes, and you know we have as much time as we need.
Oh,
I have
okay.
a lot more to hear from you, Sam.
Yeah.
So.
There was not an incident, but what they used to call sneak day. You know, the seniors would go out
Yeah,
on a field
right,
trip.
Yes,
you know.
yes, yeah.
And we
Take
did
off or
that.
something,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, yeah. Toward the end of school.
So we did that.
What'd you do on sneak day?
We went to Dude Ranch up in Loveland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.